Okay, Mike and Lisa. He's a primary care doctor, and his wife is a nurse. And Mike and Lisa's mother used to come to this class probably about 15, 20 years ago. They moved down to Florida, and he was up for a visit, so we got together. And he asked a question, which I don't think I've ever addressed here. It's like, and the question was, okay, in heaven there's no sin, and so we're going to be in heaven where there's no sin. Does that therefore mean that we lose our free will? And it's like, well, that's a good question. I can see why that question would be asked, because it's a good, if we don't have the choice to sin, doesn't that mean that our choices are limited and therefore we don't have free will? Well, I don't know for sure what the answer to that is, but I can postulate based on what we do know. All right. On Earth, our brain's computing capacity has been estimated to be about 1 exaflop, and I think I've mentioned this before. A flop is floating point operations per second. How many calculations per second can your brain do? Well, the earliest computers that were the size of the first floor of this church, they could do about 64 flops. Okay, so, not very much or less. It was very, very, very low. Then they've improved. Now our cell phones can do trillions. Okay, trillions of flops. The human brain can do 1 exaflop, which is a 1 with 18 zeros behind it. Okay, that's how many calculations per second that a human brain can do. That's pretty good. That's our cognitive capacity based on our biological minds.
I wish they told me that before algebra.
Mm-hmm. So, what percent of our consciousness right now, as we're here, what percent of our consciousness is due to our organic brain function? A lot. The organic brain directs our consciousness. It gives us our wants and our drives. It's the whole reason for, that a lot of the decisions that we make are at the behest of our organic brain function, especially eating and drinking and seeking a mate and all that stuff is very much driven by the organic brain. And then there is the Holy Spirit. As Christians, we have that extra brain. So in addition to the drives of our organic brain, we have this spiritual entity in our heads that's talking to us. It doesn't force us to do things. So it's not dominant, but it's in there talking to us. And then we have the part that's us, the ego. You could throw the superego and the ego together there. So our conscious, our soul's conscience, as well as the thing that we identify as self, the spirit part, the part that goes to heaven, if you will, the thing that we identify as ourselves that is calling the shots. So on Earth, our consciousness is a mixture. As Christians, for non-Christians, you just have these two, but Christians, you've got that extra voice in there. Now, what percent does each influence us? We don't know. You could say, well, organic 60, non-organic 35, Holy Spirit 5. Who knows? We don't know what that is. We just know who's in there. Okay? The thing is, a lot of what we do is at the behest of the organic brain. Now, when we go to heaven, guess what doesn't come with us? The organic brain. A lot of the things that give us our greatest temptations is absent. So we no longer have the organic brain. So all of those drives attributed to the organic brain are gone. We have our ego, which is our spirit, and we have the Holy Spirit, because now we are literally kind of merged with Jesus. The mind of Christ is like very real. So now he's there not as an advisor, but he's riding along inside of us. We have full access. That changes a lot. Why do we sin? I mentioned that a lot of the reason we sin is for biological reasons. For example, self-medication. When I'm feeling depressed or stressed and I want to feel good, I can medicate myself with drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. I can give myself a happy, but I know that in doing so, I'm crossing a line and doing something that I know is inappropriate. Okay, so that's one reason that we sin, self-medication. Pride. This is a hugie, okay? Pride. I want to make others see me as more successful than I really am. I want to avoid people blaming me for things that I did that are bad. I want people to love me. I want people to esteem me over other people. That's all prideful things. I want more than I really deserve. And so that right there, pride is, of all the things on this list, pride is the least biological because that goes all the way down to your soul. All right? Selfish indignation. Somebody really angered me. All right? They didn't treat me with the respect I deserve, or they're threatening. They're threatening my relationships. They're threatening my money. They're threatening my family. They're threatening something that's mine. And I don't like that. And I'm going to do something that isn't very biblical, okay? Or at least in a good way, right? Lust, greed, those are self-explanatory. Boredom, I'm just bored. I want happy, and it kind of goes back to self-medication. Only I should have thrown that up there because it's not just stressed, unfulfilled; it's also bored. Okay, and then fear, or the desire for control. Remember those neurotic needs. The neurotic need to be perfect now. The neurotic need to be loved by everybody. The neurotic need to be in control. I have to do this to make sure things go as I want and not as I don't want. These are reasons why we sin. It's all an inappropriate, stupid attempt to solve the problem. So we're going about solving a problem in the wrong way. Okay? I think marijuana is the classic example of this idea because when people feel stress and they use cannabis, they use THC, what happens is for 90 minutes you get a happy. For 90 minutes dopamine goes up in the reward center of the brain and you feel good. It actually helps you sleep. It actually addresses pain. It does a lot of good things for 90 minutes. But THC is a phytocannabinoid and it stays in your brain for a whole month. And during that time, it's doing bad things. It's stimulating the associative dopamine and the associative striatum and the amygdala, and therefore it's making you more nervous, more on edge, and it's contributing to your lack of ability to sleep on your own. So you're taking something for short-term benefits, but the long-term detriment is worse. And usually when I inform people of that, the overwhelming majority recognize it and stop using. That's amazing how incredible education is. When people understand that, they often will stop. So the reason I use that as an example is because using THC is an attempt to solve a problem, but that solution causes more damage to your life than what it solves, and that's what sin does. It does work. It solves, in your perception, it solves the problem temporarily, but at what cost? At the cost of your ability it can damage relationships. So love and belonging, your number one need, can be compromised. Your ability to have purpose in life because it damages your relationship with God. And you feel you and God have to go on vacation from one another for a while because you feel so guilty. And it causes damage to respecting yourself. Or you lose the respect of others. So you're doing something that is damaging your top 3 needs. How smart is that? So if you're really dumb, if you're ignorant, and we all are at times, we make bad choices. And that's what sin is. Really bad choices, largely based on ignorance. But in the case of pride, it's not just ignorance, it's willfulness as well. All right, now, all sin is a stupid attempt to solve a perceived problem. Now, the thing is, on earth, the average person, we've got an IQ somewhere between 50 and 200. Okay, most people somewhere around the middle there. In heaven, based on what the Bible has to say about us, considering Jesus said he would share everything with us, everything, himself and completely, and based on what I've heard from my patients who've had near-death experiences and from hundreds or thousands of reports from other near-death experiencers, when you get there, your IQ jumps to almost infinity. You understand things there's no way you could understand on earth. You know so much. And when people come back, they say, I can't describe, once I got back in my body, I forgot 99% of the stuff that I learned. But when I remember, I learned it all. I learned how everything in my life was for a reason. I saw how all the tragedies on earth happened for a reason. That God was behind the scenes orchestrating the whole thing. And everything made perfect sense. And then they come back, and then they forget all that stuff. And so we get this idea that when you are there, it's not like you are now. Your consciousness is expanded so that you have the mind that is God augmented so much that you understand the full picture of everything. See where I'm going with this? With this kind of cognition, with this kind of awareness, when you get to heaven, the idea of sinning, the primary motivations for sin are gone. All right? All those neurotic needs, all that stuff is gone. Your understanding of how the universe works is there. There is no temptation. You're not going to be tempted. If you've got a smorgasbord of all your favorite foods, you're not going to be tempted to eat a banana peel on the floor. It's a non-issue. So can you eat the banana peel? Yes. But there is virtually no motivation to do so. I mean, why would you? Why would you? And nobody does. Nobody does for that reason. It's not because God is saying, you cannot eat that banana peel. Thou shalt. He doesn't have to. You're not going to want to eat it. It makes no sense. And one question comes up, well, if God hates sin so much, why didn't he give us all that now? Because in heaven, everybody walks around with euphoria. I mean, they say you feel so good. It's better than any drug. It's like 1 billion times better than heroin, okay? Because you're there in his presence and it feels awesome. You never want to leave it. You're completely and totally complete. You feel at home. You're being flooded with all this positive emotion. It's better than being in love with the most beautiful woman you ever saw. It's better than all that all the time. That's why there's no marriage in heaven, probably, because what's the point? You feel better than you would you're kind of married to everybody for one thing, and you feel better than anything earth has to offer all the time. Well, why does he make us feel like that way now and give us that intellect now? Wouldn't that fix the sin problem? Well, the problem is with that, if you did that, if you made us feel euphoria all the time, for example, it would have wiped out the species. The reward system in our brain is based on improving our mood state if we behave the right way. We have to eat and drink. Okay, why do we eat and drink? Because there's a reward involved. When you're hungry and you eat, dopamine is released and you are rewarded for eating. God doesn't trust you to eat on faith. He doesn't say eat and then you do it and you don't get anything out of it. He pays you to eat. Same thing for procreation. We would never procreate. If you think about what's involved, you think, why would I do something so stupid? Doesn't make any sense. Unless you make it rewarding, nobody would do it. Okay? Nobody would do it. We would have died out shortly after Adam and Eve. I guarantee that would happen. And so if you make us feel 10 out of 10 enjoyment without having to perform biologically, there would be no biological systems. They would have died out long ago. So God, I'm sure, my point here is that God had his reasons for doing things the way he did. Okay? Now, with the angels, they were in heaven. They, I'm sure, felt very good in God's presence. They had all this knowledge, and yet they still sinned. Okay? And what was the sin? It was pride. It was pride. We want to be like the Most High. That was Lucifer's things. I want to be. Why does it have to be you? Just because you were the first doesn't mean you're the best. Why can't we be gods? Why can't I do that? And so that's pride. That does not require a biological brain. Now, the thing is, what can't that happen to us when we go to heaven? Can't we rebel just like the angels? Well, we have something the angels didn't have. And what is that? I think this parable sums it up.
This Pharisee invited Jesus to have dinner with him, and Jesus went to his house and sat down to eat.
Who won't want to get up in the morning?
Come along, children. Off you go. You heard me. Go. You're not up to all the mischief going, but good, son.
What is she doing here?
I don't know. she lives.
I know who this woman is, Simon. Let me tell you something. There were two men who owed money to a moneylender. One owed him 500 silver coins, the other 50. Neither of them can pay him back, so he cancelled the debts of both. Which one then will love him more?
I suppose that it would be the one who was forgiven more.
You are right. You see this woman? I came into your home. You gave me no water for my feet. She has washed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You did not welcome me with a kiss. But since I came, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You provided no olive oil for my head. Yet she has anointed my feet with perfume. I tell you then, the great love she has shown proves that her many sins are forgiven. But whoever is forgiven little shows only a little love.
That's the line. I want you to think, a lot of what Jesus said could be surmised by reading the Old Testament. But this one, not so much. And this is God speaking, and this is a very, very powerful statement. The more you are forgiven, the more you love. Okay? And see, that's the difference between us and the angels. All right? We have been forgiven a great debt, and we appreciate that we don't deserve heaven. So what God has done is he solved the pride problem by making us live out these lives on earth, to exercise our free will, to make our mistakes, and then to receive his forgiveness. We have lived it. We have experienced the sin thing, and we've made sin our enemy. Okay? And so when we go, we have something the angels didn't have. We got a chance to live this out, and we got our sinning done here. And we also we realize that we owe a great debt to him, and we're not the idea of us getting up there, puffing out our chest and saying we deserve, anybody that's really saved is not about to puff out their chest and say I deserve, because those people ain't going to be there. Okay? So that's my explanation. That's why I think. Now again, we don't have verses specifically to prove what I just said, but I think it can be, based on my belief, I think this can be reasoned out as to why we can have all these people in heaven, there is no sin, and yet the inhabitants of heaven still have free will. Okay?